In 1940, W. Somerset Maugham published a novella called Up at the Villa. Although it was immediately optioned for a movie, it has only now made it to the screen. A top-drawer cast, including Sean Penn, Anne Bancroft and James Fox, is headed up by Parisian resident Kristin Scott Thomas, who plays Mary Peyton, a woman with some serious prenuptial choices to make. As Italy succumbs to fascism, the entirely sensible but not entirely sexy Sir Edgar Swift, played by Fox, proposes to Peyton. And as often happens in the movies, she doesn't quite know what to do.
Why didn't you accept his proposal then and there? I hope you're not one of those that has to be in love to marry.
Didn't you love your husband?
Good God, no. He was so ugly he frightened the horses. But he was rich, titled, and Italian, all of which appealed.
He does have many fine qualities, and I'm very fond of him.
Our Mary decides that the best way for her to decide her future is to weigh up the other options on offer, notably an enamoured young Austrian refugee who kills himself after their short dalliance, and Sean Penn's rakishly romantic Rolly Flint.
Do you mind if I say just one thing before we drop this? You have to wait until you find someone who makes every nerve in your body snap. Makes your mouth dry when your eyes meet. Do you remember that feeling? It can happen.
And one of the stars of that film has joined me here on the Film 2000 couch, Kristin Scott Thomas. Kristin, thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure.
May I say you're the epitome of Parisian chic.
Oh, thank you.
It's tempting always to read something autobiographical into roles that actors choose for themselves, and I wonder whether there's something of this in the role for you.
Well, I think there's something of this in everybody. I know that I certainly adapt my behaviour to whatever situation I'm in, and I think it's really interesting to see that in films, because usually in films, you know, each character has a sort of leitmotif and they have a certain way of behaviour, and that doesn't alter really. You know, they have great integrity and they go forward. But this woman is all over the place, and this is what really drew me to her.
In many ways, and this is meant in a positive way, not a negative way, the film struck me as being quite an old-fashioned movie.
It is old-fashioned, yeah, but that's what I like about it, because in making it in a kind of old-fashioned way, it really throws into perspective the way people just haven't changed, and the way my character's manipulation of all these events, and the way she's sort of scrabbling along, trying to make things work, seeing that she's making the most horrific mistakes, backtracking like mad. You know, all these sort of completely human, natural, confused things that happen in the movie.
When you work on movies which are adapted from famous books, which you have done several times, is that harder than working from a script which comes fresh from some keen young Hollywood screenwriter?
Well, I like doing adaptations of novels, because I think it's so great to be able to sort of look up stuff in the book. I mean, half your work's really done for you, really. It's very lazy. So I like being on the cover afterwards. It makes me feel very grand.
There is a quote from W. Somerset Maugham, which I'm informed goes something like this. There is hardly anyone, if their sexual life was broadcast to the public at large, would not fill the world with horror. Do you think that's part of the appeal of the movie here, that you get so close into someone's...
I certainly think so, yeah. I mean, what this woman does is really... It's awful what she does, and she does it for all the wrong reasons as well. She pretends like mad it's doing this poor boy good, doing him a good turn, and in fact it's just for her own sort of gratification and for her own, it's her last fling as being a seductress.
There was a famous quote about you many, many years ago, came out, that when you were at the, was it the Central School of Speech and Dance, or theatre or something, and the guy in charge apparently said you had no talent whatsoever.
It was a lady, actually, yes. She said if I wanted to play Lady Macbeth, then I'd have to join my amateur dramatic society, which is very hurtful, and I've never forgotten it, but I forgive her now.
Do you think possibly that your career is the best revenge?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. She may think I'm awful.
Do you think she still thinks you can't play Lady
Macbeth? She probably
Macbeth?
does, yeah. I mean, you know.
But it's nice to know there's always a spot for you in the Amdram world.
Exactly.
Kristin, thank you very much for coming in. It was lovely to meet you. And despite what they said at the Central London Theatre School of Dance and Movement and Positioning or whatever, I think you're really good in films.
Thank you very much.
So I always look forward to them.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was me.
Oh.
I gave him the money because I felt so sorry for him.
Well, you did him a good turn, because the last thing he did was pay the people he stayed with all the money he owed them in rent and board. Then he took out his gun and killed himself.
Would you like some water, dear? Did the policeman actually say that he'd killed himself?
Oh, yes. Straight from the horse's mouth, they found the gun clasped in his hand.
Can't we talk about something nicer now?
Yes.
Up at the Villa is an above-average romantic drama boasting some strong performances. In what is a very English affair, the beautiful Miss Scott Thomas and the manly Mr. Penn conjure up an amorous tingle. And while it ain't no Casablanca, it's a good example of considered movie making from the old school. One to take your auntie to see perhaps when it opens at selected cinemas from Friday.